What if secrets buried in a dead billionaire's files could actually bring down a government? It sounds like a spy movie plot, right? Well, it's not. It's the reality crashing down on number 10 Downing Street right now, where one man's past with Jeffrey Epstein is threatening to end a prime minister's career. And this quote right here from opposition leader Kemi Badenoch, it just cuts right to the heart of the whole storm. The accusation is simple, but absolutely devastating, that Prime Minister Keir Starmer didn't just make a bad call. He ignored warnings that were hiding in plain sight for anyone to see. And look, this isn't just the usual political noise. The stakes here are incredibly high. A political risk analysis from the Eurasia Group puts the chance of Prime Minister Starmer being forced out of his job at 80%. Let that sink in. That's a staggering number, and it just goes to show you how close to the edge his leadership really is. So how in the world did a government get to the brink like this? Well, that's what we're going to break down. We'll start with the Prime Minister's current predicament and introduce the man at the very center of it all. Then, we'll dive into those jaw-dropping Epstein file revelations that completely torched a career. And from there, we'll see how that fire spread right to the Prime Minister's doorstep, leaving Britain's political future totally up in the air. All right, so let's set the scene. Right now, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is having what is probably the worst week of his entire career. I mean, he is literally fighting for his political life, and the calls for him to resign aren't just coming from his opponents, they're coming from inside his own party. So who is the guy whose past just set off this political bomb? Meet Peter Mandelson. You have to understand, for decades, this guy was a towering figure in British politics. Often a controversial one for sure, but now he's gone from being a political heavyweight to being the eye of the hurricane. For years, Peter Mandelson was known as a master political operator. Think of a ruthless, brilliant, media-savvy problem solver. He was an elder statesman in the Labour Party, served in the cabinet twice, basically a deeply powerful and influential force. And now, that entire legacy is being completely rewritten by this scandal. Which, of course, leads to the billion-dollar question. How does a political veteran's past suddenly erupt with enough force to threaten an entire government? The answer wasn't found in London. It was found thousands of miles away, buried in millions of pages of documents. The whole crisis just exploded when the U.S. Justice Department unsealed this massive trove of documents, all connected to the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. And what was inside those files about Peter Mandelson? Well, it wasn't just bad, it was politically radioactive. Let's break down the key allegations, because they're serious. The files suggest financial payments from Epstein, that Mandelson kept up his friendship long after Epstein's 2008 conviction, and even that he lobbied for the financier's interests. But the real bombshell, the one that changes everything, is the accusation that Mandelson shared confidential government secrets right in the middle of the 2008 global financial meltdown. First, let's talk money. Bank documents from back in 2003 and 2004 seem to show 3 payments from Epstein totaling $75,000, going to accounts that were linked to Mandelson or his partner. Mandelson's response to all this? He says he has no record or recollection of the payments and is looking into it. But it's these alleged leaks during the financial crisis that have truly shaken the establishment. Let's just walk through the timeline. In June 2009, he supposedly forwards a secret internal government report to Epstein. Then, in October, it looks like he tells Epstein he would lobby against a new tax on bankers' bonuses. And then there's this, which is just astonishing. In May 2010, he allegedly messages Epstein about a 500 times billion euro bailout, hours before it was officially announced. The implication here is staggering, that state secrets were being passed to a private financier during a moment of global panic. So as you can imagine, the professional fallout for Mandelson himself was immediate, and it was absolutely brutal. I mean, just look at how fast everything fell apart for him. In September 2025, he gets fired as the UK's ambassador to the US. Then you fast forward to February 2026, and it's a complete collapse. He resigns from his party, he quits the House of Lords, he becomes the subject of a criminal police investigation, and his homes get searched by the police. A career built over decades? Dismantled in just a matter of months. But the story doesn't end with him. Oh no, this is where the scandal travels right up the road, away from Parliament, and engulfs the highest office in the land. This is how Peter Mandelson's personal disgrace became Prime Minister Keir Starmer's absolute nightmare. The Prime Minister's defense is pretty much summed up in this one blunt statement. His position is, I was lied to, I was deceived. He's insisting that Mandelson was not truthful about the real nature
of his relationship with Epstein when he was being vetted for that U.S. ambassadorship. So this brings us to the central political fight. On one side, you have Downing Street's official story. The prime minister was misled by a trusted colleague. But on the other side, you have the fierce criticism, basically asking, how could you possibly not have known? Critics are hammering the point that Mandelson's friendship with Epstein after his 2008 conviction wasn't a secret. It was public record. It's this disconnect that one MP called a catastrophic error of political and moral judgment.
And the political damage has been severe. First, there was this intense backlash, with calls for Starmer to resign coming from all over. Then, a major casualty. His chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, quit, taking full responsibility. And that was followed by a full public apology from the Prime Minister himself, directly to Epstein's victims, for having, as he put it, believed Mandelson's lies.
So where does all this go now? The scandal has left a trail of pure destruction, and the future for both Mandelson and the Prime Minister is deeply, deeply uncertain. For Mandelson, the legal stakes couldn't be higher. He's being investigated for what's called misconduct in public office. Now, this isn't a minor charge. It's a very serious offense for abusing the public's trust, and it carries a potential maximum sentence of life in prison. However, and this is a big however, as legal expert Dr. Tom Frost explains here, actually getting a conviction for this is really difficult. Prosecutors have to prove that an official willfully acted, knowing that what they were doing was wrong. Because that bar is so high, a prosecution is far from guaranteed. So let's just recap the wreckage. Peter Mandelson is out of public life and under a criminal investigation. Morgan McSweeney has resigned, taking the fall for the appointment, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer, his entire premiership is hanging by a thread. So what happens now? Is this scandal going to lead to some form of justice for Epstein's victims? Will there be real political accountability for this disastrous failure of judgment? Or is this just going to be another political storm that eventually fades away? In Britain, the final chapter of the Epstein story is still being written.